Welcome to the Feast Fighters Podcast, the Voices of LeanFeast.
Lean, it's that LeanFeast vibe. We can go all night, all night.
We're back. Good morning.
Good morning. We're in.
Baker, is that you?
Good morning.
That's me. I'm here.
Mr. Law Dog. Luke, is that you?
Present and accounted for.
Hey, Luke, is your Wi-Fi off?
1 moment, please.
Un momento.
Was I choppy already?
No, but I'm trying to catch it before it happens.
Oh. Yeah, Wi-Fi's pretty rough these days.
Well,
Everybody's online using it.
You have such a beautiful voice that when it gets choppy, we get all discombobulated. What do we call it, Baker? Whopper jawed?
Yeah, Whopper Joe.
Whopper
Oh,
jawed.
cattywampus.
Cattywampus, yeah.
I've never heard that before.
You never heard Whopper jawed?
No.
Have you heard cattywampus?
Yeah, but not in that context, I don't think.
Hey, so we obviously have a guest on today. What is your name? You don't have to say your last name if you don't want to.
My name's Jordan.
Hi, Jordan.
Hello.
Hello, Jordan.
You are related to Matt at the Conway store. Is that correct?
That is very correct.
Awesome. So we wanted to do this podcast with you because we feel at the end of our last podcast, we wanted to thank, or we thanked, everybody on the front lines and everybody, battling this COVID-19 stuff, right? And we kind of wanted to pick your brain and talk to you and kind of get some ideas of what's going on over at your place. And I think, Luke, you have some questions written down that you want to go ahead and lead off, yeah?
Yeah. So Jordan, out of respect for you and where you work, we decided we're not going to mention where you work, but you do work at a medical facility, and you are dealing with, that you've got first responders all around you, dealing with patients that are suffering or dealing with the COVID-19 virus. Is that correct?
This is correct, yeah.
Okay, so can you kind of tell us what your background is and what you do for the place you work at?
Yeah, I've been a licensed phlebotomist since 2016. And a phlebotomist is someone who draws your blood when your doctor orders blood work or collects specimen samples if you need like a flu test done or a throat culture done or any kind of bodily fluid. I am the person to collect that or help in assisting the rest of the laboratory scientists with processing those specimens. So that's what I do.
Baker loves to get his blood drawn.
Who?
Do what?
I said Baker loves to get his blood drawn.
Yeah, I almost pass out.
It's a very common thing, yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
And the bad thing is you think that, I used to think, oh, I'm good. That ain't going to happen to me. And I've had blood drawn. But one time, man, I really thought I would be stronger than that. But your body says no. You get real clammy. You get real shaky.
But your body.
That phlebotomist in there, she was rubbing on my back. And I swear to you, it was bringing me back to life. I told her, I said, don't quit rubbing my back, please. She was treating me like she was my mom. She was rubbing my back, like fanning me with a piece of paper. I was like, this is embarrassing.
You know what I always get? People always ask me, because I don't like needles, but I have a lot of tattoos, and they're like, well, you got tattoos, how can you not like needles? I said, it's completely different. You're not stabbing me with a tattoo gun. You're kind of just coloring me. So some people don't understand that, but I'm sorry.
Well, they're just dragging a needle into your skin and scraping it up. I feel like that's a little worse.
Wow, now that you put it that way, I mean, that's kind of gross.
Now it's going to be in your head, and the tattoo, it's going to bother you.
It's going to bother me next time. Jiminy Christmas.
So Jordan, you're like a medical vampire, right?
I would say, yeah.
Or a
And the
leech.
doctors are,
leech.
Dracula. They're the ones that put the orders in, and we just go out and get it.
So you're like Dracula's minion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, so I have another question here, and this one may take you a minute to answer, but I posted something on Instagram the other day, and a lot of people jumped on it and agreed with me. I put something to the effect of, the best thing that I've done in this whole pandemic was turn off the news. I've got several friends that are in media news, whether it's newspaper or newscasters, and this is totally nothing against them because I feel that they're one of the few that actually report accurately enough. But I put something on my Instagram the other day and said something to the effect of the best thing I ever did was turn the media off. Just turn the news off. I deleted the news app from my phone, and I just started to focus on what was around me. I opened my eyes and said, you know what? I'm looking around, and it doesn't seem to be as crazy and hectic as the media is trying to make you believe. And I know it's different everywhere. Every city's going to be different. It's going to be more or less hectic. But my question to you is, what does it look like where you work? I mean, because I think a lot of people, based on the news, they're thinking like people are running through the hallway, and it was like, people are just like running around like zombies, and it's just chaos and craziness. What does it look like where you work?
I would say in the beginning of this it was a little chaotic. As the weeks have gone by, I think a lot of medical facilities have started to create structure around it and remember that this is just another virus, that we already have standard precautions in place that are to help us and guide us in how to deal with it. We know that it's a droplet precaution, so you're going to wear gloves, you're going to wear a mask, you're going to wear a gown. They told us we should also wear goggles like over our eyes to protect any of the virus from entering in through your eyes. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's important to kind of remember, all right, we already have something that can guide us and that can ground us and bring us back to reality.
Yeah.
It's a matter of washing your hands, doing it properly, and following, the directions that are being given to us. I think pausing all the news and the media is great because it can kind of make you get a little stir crazy, and it seems like that's all that's out there right now, and that's all that everyone's talking about, and it can be overwhelming for sure.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can this be transmitted sexually if you don't wear protection? That you know of, or maybe you don't know? I mean, it's a droplet, maybe, right? I mean, not to get too graphic.
Droplet as in a fluid coming out of your face.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like I'm gonna stay in my lane. Sneeze or you cough.
I'm just stay in my lane, buddy.
I'm just curious. I haven't Googled it yet, so I was just curious as I was listening to her talk.
I would say as a contact, as far as like an STI, no. But if you're gonna be kissing someone during intercourse, then sure, yeah, you could possibly get it.
Got it. Okay, that works. That works.
Okay, so ahead, to add on to what you just said, Jordan, all of the hospitals and medical facilities have procedures that have been in place for since the dawn of modern medicine. It's just a matter of enacting those. I've seen a lot of the hospitals around are putting like tents up and cordoning areas off and putting plastic tarp up, and where you in a section of the hospital where you may once have had face-to-face contact with somebody when you first came in, they've set up barriers and things like that. Is that what's becoming standard practice, and is that where the chaos came from, is just enacting your own policies?
Let's see. Well, I think they've taken extra measures to make sure that they can be doing everything possible to prevent the spread of the virus. And, coronavirus itself is nothing new. It's been around a long time. This, however, is a virus that is being named after the scientific name of a virus. Other ways that we know it is flu or H1N1, but it's like a whole category, and it's just the structure of it is what it's called. That's why they call it the coronavirus. But as far as like all the tents and everything, I think they're just taking extra measures because there's still a lot of unknowns as to how to treat this and how rapidly it spreads. And the thing, when you have the flu, you can take ibuprofen, you can take over-the-counter things to kind of help with your symptoms. And there's a drug out there called Tamiflu, which helps. And we don't have those kinds of things for coronavirus right now. So we're still trying to learn about it. And it's been declared a pandemic. So everyone's kind of taking all those extra measures just to protect anyone who is going to be in a medical facility, and the people who run those medical facilities want to protect their employees and, the healthcare workers, because if we don't have them, then we don't have anyone to help the sick.
Mm-hmm. What you had mentioned some PPE earlier, and for those who, I think we mentioned this on our last podcast, PPE is personal protective equipment.
Correct.
Every field has their own version of it. What doctors wear for PPE is going to be a little bit different from, what a construction worker might wear for PPE. But what everybody is so uninformed about the amounts and the availability of PPE. What does the place that you work at look like? Do they have enough PPE to go around? Are you guys missing out on things? Are you running out of things? What does that look like?
Well, in the beginning of this all, it was a matter of kind of preserving what we had, because it was already becoming something that was, running out of stock wherever, our country is ordering this stuff from.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't able to get it. So they were kind of hoarding it a little bit and distributing it out as needed. And then quickly that changed, realizing, that we need to be protected with everyone we come in contact with, because, they could potentially have something, and we don't want to start having all those healthcare workers getting sick. But as the weeks have gone on, and as, news follows, we have been getting more and more PPE available to us. However, we are still kind of utilizing some practices that the CDC and the Arkansas State Department has put in place, which they give you some guidelines on how to properly reuse a mask, a surgical mask, or an N95 mask.
So you guys are reusing masks, is that correct?
Yes,
because there's a safe way to do that, I hear.
There is some guidelines on properly removing your PPE, and the amount of times that you sanitize your hands doing it is like maybe 10 or more times. But yes, there is a way to do it, but you are to inspect all your PPE to make sure that it's not, been contaminated. If you see fluids on it or you sneezed in your mask, obviously you're not going to reuse that. If you have blood or something on the outside of your mask, you're not going to use it. If there's tears or holes where it's not fitting you properly anymore, then you're going to change it out and you're going to get a new one. However, you are supposed to change them out between every single patient. But I think because of this pandemic, there are some emergency uses and practices that are allowed to be used during this time, because we just don't have as much equipment as we normally would because of all of this. So
Right.
How is how are you at your facility? Are you guys testing for COVID-19?
We are, yes.
And how is that? That's not done by blood, right?
No, it is not.
Okay, it's a
It,
swab in the back of the throat or something.
it's not. It's actually called a pharyngeal swab,
It looks
and
horrible.
it is basically a flu swab, and it's a little tiny, um, fuzzy swab, and you stick it straight up the patient's nose, all the way into the pharyngeal area, which
Ooh.
is not your sinuses. It's above your sinuses.
It's like in the middle of your brain. That's what it looks like on the picture.
Stab your brain.
Pretty
And
much. It's a giant Q-tip.
yep, and you have to do both sides, and then it goes into a viral media transport tube, and then they're doing a PCR method to detect the coronavirus DNA. And if you're positive for that, then your specimen will go to the CDC, and then they further test your specimen and get more information from that patient if they are positive.
So since you've been doing all of this testing and everything, have you had any scares or close calls?
I have, yes.
Can you talk about that?
I can, yeah. It was during a time where it wasn't mandatory at the time to have a surgical mask on your face when you come into contact with any patient. So me and other healthcare workers, a part of the patient's care, had come in contact with the patient while they were being hospitalized as an inpatient. And sometime during their duration with us, the doctor decided that the patient had shown signs of COVID-19 and wanted to have that patient tested for it. So once someone goes from not showing signs to showing signs and they get tested, then they're automatically considered a patient under investigation, a PUI, and they have to go into isolation. So the people who had been a part of that patient's care prior to that test were all potentially exposed, if you will. And so what we had to do was wear a mask on our face all of the time while we were at work in case we did have it, while we were waiting for that patient's results to come back. And the patient ended up actually being negative, which is great. But it was a few days of a waiting game, and had to come home and isolate myself for a couple of days from my family. And although it was nice to have alone time, it was hard when you have a little one who doesn't quite understand that. So
yeah. Well, that kind of leads me into my next question. What do you have to do to stay safe at home, since you're constantly being potentially exposed to people that have it there, and it can come in many different forms, surfaces and things like that. But how do you stay safe at home? What are your practices when you come home?
Well, what I do is when I get home, I get out of the car and I get Clorox wipes and I wipe all of the inside of my car down. And then I spray the floorboards with Lysol. I take my shoes off, I spray my shoes with Lysol, and they stay in my garage instead of going into my house. And then I close my garage door so my neighbors don't see, and I strip down. And I bring all of my clothes straight into the washer, and I wash them on a hot cycle. And I go straight into the shower and take a hot shower before I come in contact with anybody.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I feel like, as we've learned, if you are washing your hands with hot water and soap for 20 seconds or more, you're going to be breaking down that fatty layer on the coronavirus, and then it kills and destroys it. So if you're breaking down that layer, I think you're doing a good job of not bringing it around.
You mean you can't just turn on the water and act like you're washing your hands and walk out of the bathroom with dry hands?
Correct. You must actually wash them.
I've been doing
Yeah,
it.
and that's
I've been doing it wrong
I've
this
done
whole time.
I just
I've
give
done
it
a
a
bit
little
of
rinse
studying
rinse.
myself on what this virus is, and a lot of people don't understand that viruses are not living things. They're actually like fat covered proteins, if you will. Is that correct?
Well, in particular, this virus, it is a protein structure. I don't know if that's true for all viruses, so I won't.
Yeah.
I won't
Well, I
say
know
that,
for
but
for this one, it's not a living thing. So a lot of people don't understand how you can how to kill something that's not alive. And that's why the whole hand washing thing is so important. Is because it's not that you're necessarily washing the virus off, but it's that you're agitating the
breaking
soap
down.
and breaking down that fatty layer to where the protein itself can't survive without that fatty layer. So you've got to wash your hands long enough, because it's kind of like if you've ever deep fried something, or you're trying to wash something greasy off of a pot or a pan.
Yeah.
You've got to use hot water, and you use soap, because the soap breaks down the fat, and same thing with the hot water. You're not going to be able to get something clean if you use no soap and cold water. It's the pot or pan is always going to be greasy. So this virus is kind of the same way, and the fact that you got to wash your hands with soap and warm or hot water long enough to break down that fatty layer on the virus, and to where it would kill it off. And I say kill it. You can't really kill something that's not alive. It's just to get rid of it, break it down.
yeah, you're breaking down the integrity when you're using soap, and the soap is what is abrasive enough to break down that integrity of the structure of the cell, basically. So yeah, washing your hands is like the biggest thing. Use soap, and use a lot of soap. I wash my hands for 2 ABCs every time I come in contact with patients, and it's been working.
So that another question for you. We hear everybody talk about hand washing. Everybody understands the importance of it now, I hope. But what are some other things that the public can be doing in addition to the hand washing and the masks and everything that you hear about? I know those are the most effective things, but what else? Are there any other tips or tricks that you can put out there that maybe your facility does that would help people in the public stay healthy?
I don't really think so. I think washing your hands is the most important thing. I did see a little video that a doctor had posted about hands that had been washed and had touched bread, and bread that had not been touched at all by a human, and then bread that was touched by hands that were not washed. They were totally soiled and dirty. And then hands that were only cleaned by hand sanitizer. And they let that bread be in a little Ziploc baggie for, I think it was 20 days.
Yeah, so I think that's right. I saw that one. I think it was 20 days.
And it was showing that obviously the untouched bread was the cleanest. And the bread that was touched by the hands that were washed properly was the second cleanest bread. That bacteria had not grown on there. So I think really it's just really super important to wash your hands. Just always wash your hands, and don't rely on hand sanitizer.
Yeah,
hand sanitizer.
What did the one with hand sanitizer look like?
It didn't look very good, did it? I think
It still had bacteria growing on the bread. Not as much as the totally dirtied hands.
Yeah.
But it was still pretty present. It was a good visual to see that hand sanitizer isn't always going to be your answer. So wash your hands with soap and water and do it for 20 seconds and make sure it's hot.
Yeah. Something else I found out online too was why it's critical to make sure that your hand sanitizer is not expired. A lot of people keep it around for a long time and they don't look on the bottle. And the reason that information is on there is because the alcohol that's in it, the effective agent that's in there, it evaporates and it just dissipates, and it's no longer the correct percentage. And
Right.
so there was a guy that had, I don't remember where I saw it, but they had recommended reviving old hand sanitizer, not throw it away, but if you have a bottle of rubbing alcohol, which is normally between 60 and 70% alcohol, to revive your hand sanitizers with additional alcohol. Is that generally a safe practice?
That I do not know. I would say just keep current hand sanitizer at home, and if you can, or just buy hand soap.
Yeah.
Go back to the basics. Just wash your hands. That's all you got to do. I don't know about reviving with adding alcohol to it. I'm not sure.
I think, and as I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk, Luke, I agree why you completely turned off the news and you guys don't pay attention to that stuff over there. I mean, we kind of did it over here too. We're not so glued into the news, but I can tell you this: the news media and all the reporters and everything, by flipping out the way that they do, that scared the bejesus out of me just to stay in my house. So I think that's a huge plus. I don't think you should necessarily completely turn off the news and delete the app and all that. I mean, it might work for some people, but for me, I mean, I don't think anybody takes it so serious until the media blows it up. Whether the media is full of shit or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's kind of what helped me on my side. I mean, like I said, everybody's different, but
and maybe that was their purpose the whole time, is to scare everybody enough to get them to stay inside. And there's maybe that's one of the few times where the media helped versus make everybody just freak out.
Yeah.
So Jordan,
and I think it's good to.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, I just think it's good to have a news that you trust, to stay informed on the next steps that are happening with this timeline of everything. That way you know what you're doing, or you can stay up to date on what we should be doing.
Right.
I was just watching TMZ. That's all.
I mean, is that really news?
No, I was
No.
I was not watching TMZ.
So Jordan, on that note, what we're starting to see our country's leaders talk and start the conversations about opening the country again. And there's mixed feelings about that. There's some for it, some against it, some that have no clue at all. But based solely on what you're seeing where you work, the medical facility where you work, do you see us being able to start loosening these shelter in place and lockdown restrictions sooner, or as soon as our country's leaders are claiming that they're going to be? And I think I saw something like May 1st. What do you think about that?
That's a tough one to answer.
Maybe a better question might be, if we do open, say May 1st or May 5th or whatever the date is, do you see another wave potentially firing back up and overwhelming the medical system again?
I don't know. I don't want to pretend like I know.
Yeah.
I think there's a sense of urgency to open back up because our leaders of our country want to get our economy going again, which is understandable. Kind of helps make the world turn over in the United States, for sure.
Right.
But if the ultimate goal here is to keep us safe and not allow this thing to continue to spread, then I think it's important to follow what our scientists and our doctors have to say, and to take their advice, heed their advice, and kind of follow along with that, or have really high structure on slowly opening it up. And the American people need to listen to that and follow that and not be stubborn. It's hard being home and not being able to do the things that we normally do, but this is important, and we need to listen, and we need to pay attention, and and we need to stop throwing our dirty gloves in parking lots.
Yeah,
that just really shows our true colors. I mean, come on.
I'll pick mine up. Sorry.
So one last question I have for you.
Yeah.
How are you and your coworkers at your facility holding up? Are you guys just dead tired? I mean, are people able to deal with it? Are they just running you into the ground? What does that look like?
I think that we have a lot of employees who are burnt out and exhausted. They're tired. They are working shift after shift after shift, taking care of these patients. And not only are we taking care of the patients to the best of our abilities, but every day a new measure is put into place and a new thing for us to follow as far as best practices and our PPE and how we're cleaning or transporting patients. And that is really difficult to deal with, having new rules put in front of us every single day. So you walk into work and it's different than it was yesterday. So you're constantly having to welcome change, and it's hard because it doesn't really help create, a good workflow for you and for your patient. And so it can be really exhausting. But, these doctors and these nurses I work with, they're fearless and they do a great job.
Yeah. So something I've noticed too, and I want to applaud all of our franchisees that are part of our network. We have a soft spot in our hearts for medical people, first responders, anybody in that category. And what we've seen a lot lately, and it's been incredible, is several of our franchisees are doing everything within their power to give back and donate to these medical facilities. So we see a lot of them coming in, they're all gloved up and masked up, and they've got all their protective measures on, and they're bringing in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meals from their prospective LeanFeasts. And it's pretty awesome to see that they're giving back and doing their best to care for the people that are caring for us. So have you seen much of that at your place there?
Yeah, we have actually. We've had the UCA students. They actually made us, oh my gosh, I think they've made us a couple of different of meals just for the laboratory people. And we've had some free lunches on a number of different local areas, different companies, schools. We had First Security Bank bring everybody in the hospital a little basket full of snacks and candies and stuff, and that was really nice.
Wow.
I know I saw something on Facebook that Bulgogi was bringing in a whole bunch of meals over to the hospital, and that was great. It was really nice to see that our community pulling in together and taking care of each other. It's great.
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot. Our franchisees all over the U.S. are really stepping up and doing what they can to keep people fed and keep these first responders motivated to go back and work every day, which I know is very tough, and it's very scary because sometimes you bring your work home with you, and in the form of a virus, and that's just scary too. That's tough for people to deal with, and it's very nerve-wracking. But everybody seems to be doing great with that. Eric or Baker, do you guys have any questions for Jordan?
Well, she answered my main question. I just wanted to hear that she's seen someone with the COVID for all the skeptics at home that don't believe it unless they see it.
Yeah, that's frustrating too. Eric?
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, I was just up on the sexual hype and the washing hands, so I mean, I got my stuff answered.
No more rinsey rinse. You
No,
gotta keep putting your gloves in the trash.
No, there's always got to be one jackass in the group. I guess today that jackass is me. So. Jordan, we appreciate your time. I know that you just laid your little one down to bed, so we're gonna let you go and so you can get some mommy time. And we appreciate you and everything you're doing. And if there's anything else that we can do for you, let us know. And thanks for being on the podcast today. We're gonna call this one the Hero Cast. So
Hero Cast.
You're a hero in our eyes, so we appreciate you.
Do you wear a cape, Jordan? You should wear a cape if you don't.
Hey, sometimes.
Can you build one into your PPE? I think it's necessary.
I can build one out of some face masks.
Yeah, thank you, Jordan. We do appreciate what you guys do. And like Eric said, if there's something that the LeanFeast network can do to help you or your medical contacts, friends that are on the front lines, please let us know.
Hey, well, thank you for having me. And it was my pleasure to give you the insight that I know.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate you shedding some light on that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. We'll get you on the next episode, and hopefully we'll be just as entertaining, just as instructional, and just grabbing as much information as we possibly can. So, guys, thanks for being on the call. Again, thanks to Jordan and everybody at the place that she's currently working at. So we appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
All right.
Peace.
Thank
Love
you. Love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Feast Fighter podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at LeanFeast, Instagram at Lean_Feast, Facebook and Twitter at The LeanFeast. Find more voices of LeanFeast on iOS, Google Play, iTunes, and Spotify.